I never imagined a simple Grubhub order would end with my neighbor in handcuffs, but that's exactly how things played out after Sheila Watkins, our ever-watchful HOA president, decided my takeout habits somehow violated community guidelines. It all began about 3 months ago, shortly after I moved into Oakwood Estates, a perfectly manicured suburban neighborhood where mailboxes matched, lawns were trimmed to an exact 3 inches, and deviation from the norm was apparently a personal insult. I work from home as a software developer, which means I rely on delivery far more often than I'd like to admit. After a grueling coding sprint that left me living on coffee and instant noodles, I decided to treat myself to a lavish order from my favorite steakhouse. I tracked the delivery on my phone and saw the driver arrive. 5 minutes passed. No doorbell. No knock. Curious, I checked the app again. It marked my order as delivered, complete with a photo, only the door in the picture wasn't mine. I called the driver immediately. "I followed your instructions exactly," he insisted, sounding confused. The lady who answered said she was expecting it. She even gave me your name when I asked. That was my first encounter with Sheila Watkins, 60-something, with perfectly highlighted blonde hair shaped into what could only be described as a weaponized bob. As HOA president, she patrolled Oakwood Estates like a guard at a top-security prison. I recognized her distinctive teal front door from the delivery photo and walked 3 houses down. When she opened the door, the smell of my steak dinner wafted out like a cruel taunt. "Excuse me," I began politely, "but I think the driver accidentally delivered my food here." Sheila's face stayed perfectly neutral as she replied in a syrupy, patronizing tone. "Oh, I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. The HOA has a strict policy against food deliveries after 6 p.m. on weekdays. It's outlined clearly in Section 12.3 of the Community Guidelines." She smiled thinly, adding, "As president, it's my responsibility to enforce these rules. Consider this a friendly first warning." I stared, stunned. "That's my dinner. Paid for it. Can I please have my food?" Her smile didn't so much as flicker. "I've already disposed of it properly. You'll receive a written notice about the violation tomorrow. Welcome to Oakwood Estates." Then she shut the door in my face. I was out $75, still hungry, and now fuming. I ordered pizza from another service, stewing the entire time. The next morning, right on schedule, a formal violation notice appeared in my mailbox, printed on official HOA letterhead. It cited a rule that, as I later confirmed, didn't actually exist in the bylaws I'd been given when I bought the house. My emails to the HOA board were met only with automated replies. I decided to let it go. $75 wasn't worth launching a neighborhood war in my first month. But Sheila wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, a pattern emerged. Any time I ordered food, Sheila intercepted it. She seemed to have a sixth sense for delivery cars. Sometimes she'd claim the driver had broken parking rules by idling. Other times, she'd tell them I had canceled the order but forgotten to call the restaurant. Once, she even pretended to be my wife, saying I was indisposed and she'd take the food instead. After losing nearly $300 in meals, I'd had enough. I installed a doorbell camera and began recording every incident, sending formal complaints to both the HOA board and the property management company. The other board members seemed sympathetic but unwilling to challenge her. Apparently, Sheila had ruled Oakwood Estates with an iron fist for nearly a decade. "You don't understand," one neighbor whispered after a tense community meeting. Last year she had the Petersons' maple tree cut down while they were on vacation, claimed it dropped too many leaves on the sidewalk. The year before that, she fined the Garkas family daily until they painted over their daughter's chalk drawings on their own driveway. Nobody stands up to her. I decided direct confrontation wouldn't work. I needed to outsmart her. My plan. Decoy order. I placed a lavish $520 takeout order from Le Cas, the priciest French restaurant in town. Wagyu beef tartare, truffle-infused entrees, rich desserts, and several bottles of fine wine. I knew the bait would be irresistible. Then I waited. Sure enough, the moment the delivery driver stepped into the cul-de-sac, Sheila emerged like a hawk spotting prey. From my camera, I watched her intercept him, explaining that community regulations required her to accept all deliveries. Looking confused but unwilling to argue, he handed her my bags. I didn't confront her. Instead, I called the police non-emergency line. "I'd like to report a theft," I told the dispatcher calmly. "My neighbor has been taking my food deliveries without my permission. Today she took an order worth over $500. I have video evidence and records of multiple previous incidents." 20 minutes later, 2 police cruisers rolled into our quiet street, lights flashing. The police cars rolled in with their lights flashing but sirens silent. I watched from my window as the officers approached Sheila's teal front door and rang the bell. Her reaction was worth every penny of that $520 order. First confusion, then dawning indignation. She started gesturing wildly, no doubt explaining her self-appointed authority to confiscate deliveries under imaginary HOA regulations. One of the officers peeled away from the conversation and walked toward my house. "Sir," he began, his voice skeptical, "your neighbor says she was acting in her capacity as the Homeowners Association president by confiscating unauthorized deliveries." I handed him my phone. "Here's the HOA's bylaws. Notice there's no such rule anywhere in them. And here's the footage from my doorbell camera. That's today, and here are several other incidents." As he watched the videos, his expression darkened. "And the value of today's order?" he asked. $523.47, I said, showing him the receipt, which included an $80 bottle of Bordeaux and a $100 Wagyu steak. The officer nodded. "Wait here, please." I stayed on my porch as he returned to his partner and Sheila. Their conversation grew more animated, Sheila's hand gestures morphing from confident to frantic. And then, to my astonishment, one officer took out a pair of handcuffs while the other began reading her rights. I couldn't hear the exact words, but I didn't need to. Sheila's face had turned the shade of overcooked salmon as she was led to the cruiser. Later that evening, one of the officers returned to take my formal statement. "Your neighbor is being charged with grand larceny," he explained. "In this state, theft of property over $500 is a felony." She claimed she was disposing of the food for health and safety reasons, but we found your order intact in her refrigerator and the wine on her counter. He smirked slightly. She also seemed genuinely shocked to learn that being HOA president doesn't give her legal authority to take other people's property. Word spread fast. By the next night, the HOA called an emergency meeting with one topic on the agenda: Sheila Watkins. The community center was packed. Neighbors lined the walls, many eager to share their own horror stories about Sheila's overreach. The board members looked increasingly uncomfortable as resident after resident took the floor. When my turn came, I didn't bother giving a speech. I simply played a compilation of my camera footage. The room fell silent as Sheila appeared again and again, intercepting deliveries in her bathrobe, rushing out in gardening gloves, taking bags with a phone pressed to her ear. The evidence spoke for itself. The vote to remove her as president was unanimous. The vice president, Howard, a retired accountant, announced that a full audit of the HOA's finances would be conducted going back 3 years. "We've also been informed," Howard added, "that Ms. Watkins has been released on bail. She is facing possible prison time and substantial legal fees." 2 days later, I was working when I heard a knock. I opened the door to find Sheila, not the immaculately coiffed neighborhood tyrant I'd come to know, but a pale, deflated version of herself. Her hair was limp, her makeup minimal, and her grip on her designer handbag was white-knuckled. "My attorney says I need to make restitution," she said quietly, thrusting an envelope toward me. "This covers all the food you lost, plus interest." I took it without looking inside. "Thank you," I said simply. She lingered, searching my face. Maybe for forgiveness, maybe hoping I'd offer to drop the charges. Instead I asked, "Was it worth it? All that effort to control your neighbors over such small things?" Her composure cracked. "You don't understand," she hissed, trembling. "I've given everything to maintain standards in this community. Everything. And now I might lose my real estate license over this misunderstanding. Her eyes filled with tears. Do you know what a criminal record will do to my career? My reputation. The preliminary hearing is tomorrow. I studied her, this once untouchable figure now cornered by her own actions. I didn't feel satisfaction, only a weary sense that justice had finally caught up. That was never my intention, I said honestly. I just wanted to eat my dinner in peace. Before she could reply, my phone chimed. Excuse me, I said, glancing at the screen. That's my lunch delivery arriving. And this time I think it'll actually make it to my door.